Wait, where's he watching this at? YouTube. I don't want that. All right.
Senator, thank you very much for spending the time to have this conversation.
It's good to be with you.
So you've come out for regime change in Iran, as distinct just from taking out the nuclear sites. What does regime change look like in Iran?
Somebody else in charge.
How do you get there?
Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us?
And definitely the latter is better.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe you look across the world when you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want...
Maduro don't hate the U.S. The people hate the U.S. because the United States gets involved in their crap and tries to force them to take horrible deals for their country. That's why people hate the U.S. People do not hate the U.S. because they just wake up and say, I hate America. Like, the way these people talk is ridiculous. There's a reason people dislike us. And they don't just want to see all of us die. They dislike you, Ted Cruz. They dislike the American government. They don't dislike the American working class. That's what these politicians don't get. And that's what a lot of Americans need to start understanding is they don't hate us. They hate them.
Our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power.
I could not agree more. The question...
Besides the point that Iran's original democratically elected government was overthrown by guess who? Western forces, America. And this current regime was propped up because at the time, like it always happens, we get somebody into power that does what America wants, and then they grow a backbone and decide, hey, nah, I'm done taking the bad end of the stick, and they start to stand up for their people or their government, and then we don't like that, and then the cycle continues. It's the same vicious cycle, year after year.
How do you get there?
Of course.
And we've been trying to kill Maduro for quite some time. We have troops there.
I don't know that we've been trying to kill Maduro.
We have. And I think you know that. And
I don't know that.
Okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So
we do have massive sanctions. We tried to pressure him out of office.
Yeah,
I'm not aware of efforts.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Same, the country of our ancestors, Cuba, 1959, we've been working on that. Hasn't worked. So I think we both agree it's hard to do.
It absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're reasonable to ask, how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are all sorts of things I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not.
Better off.
You would not be better off without. These guys just hate China. They hate China. China doesn't even want to get involved to help Iran. Like, that frustrates people like me. Like, people that like China in the West, we get frustrated at China because they don't even come at the defense of their own allies. They're not going to come. If the U.S. started bombing Iran for Israel, China would not then start bombing Israel for Iran. That's the difference. That's what people don't get. China is very non-interventionist to a fault, where it actually hurts them in this instance, because they should. Because Iran's probably going to get screwed over in the long run, because if the U.S. does get involved, which they will probably at some point if Israel's going to fall, no matter if we the people want that or not, the U.S. will get involved, and Iran will either have to surrender or fall and lose sovereignty or independence or whatever, and China will lose a big ally that helps them with stuff, with oil and gas and everything. So I wish that they would step in, but they probably won't. But this idea that China's our big bad enemy, they're not. They just want to coexist in the world. Yeah, the U.S. can't just like dominate the world and bully. If you consider that a threat, then sure, China's a threat. But we can coexist with China. There can be a multipolar world. We don't need to be enemies.
Off of no national debt.
There are lots of things.
Totally.
But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives?
Right.
And so with the Ayatollah in Iran saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America. So that's not good.
Definitely not good. But the reason I think it's important to get a little more detailed about how that might happen is because there's military action in progress, which we're supporting. And the president has said clearly, including last night, that he is focused on eliminating the capacity of the Iranian government to produce nuclear weapons. You are saying we need to use military force to effect regime change.
I have not said that.
Oh, I must have.
No, I have not said that once.
Okay.
I don't think we need to use military force to do regime change. I said I support it. I would like to see it happen. You asked me how should it happen? A popular uprising. What I've advocated for. All right, let's step back a second.
The funny thing is, Israel and the West has been trying to throw this. They're currently bombing the heck out of Tehran and in Iran or Iran, and they think that they're also trying to push this. Oh, you guys need a regime change. You need to topple your government. BS. I'm sorry, but if you were currently bombing me, even if I don't like my government, like this is why people say there would be a false flag in the United States to get the U.S. on board to go to war with Iran, because the United States people do not want to go to at war with Iran. They want to stay home. They do not want to go fight Israel's wars that they started for no reason. So they would need to do a false flag, an event to make Americans feel like we've been attacked. That's what's a unifier. That's why 9/11 happened. That's why all this other stuff happened. What are your thoughts on it? That's what got the U.S. and public to want to go to war in the Middle East for the last 20 plus years. And that's what they're trying to do again, right here.
You and I, we've known each other a long time. I would say we agree on about 80% of the things on Earth.
For sure.
And there are a lot of things, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of foreign policy as much as you want. There are a lot of things on which you and I agree, not just a little bit, but violently.
I totally agree. I was rooting for you in your last campaign, for sure.
Well, thank you. Look, you have been heroic on the border. You've been one of the clearest and best voices in the whole country on securing the border and on the absolute crisis we're facing. And in Texas, I see it and live it every day.
This guy, here we go, slobbering all over his knob. Come on, dude.
In COVID, in fact, you may recall, in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I was out walking my dog when the whole world was shut down and we were living in lunatic times. And I called you and said, Tucker, your nightly monologues are the single best thing on television. Like I watch them like an injection of crack. Okay, I'm mixing my metaphor because you don't inject crack, but you get what I'm saying.
Try.
No, I mean, you were standing up and speaking like, what the hell are we doing, in a way that we desperately, desperately needed. And so whether it's securing the border, whether it's the insanity of COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, whether it is the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, you and I agree on a ton of stuff. The 20% where we disagree, I do think is meaningful.
Ted Cruz, I don't think you agree on the First Amendment, because I bet you're one of them Israel people that will, everything's anti-Semitic, that's anti-Israel. So I'm sure you're not pro-First Amendment as much as you'd like to say you are. And I'm sure if the left starts arming themselves, you would not be as pro-gun or Second Amendment as you say you are either, bud.
And it's mostly in the foreign policy space. And what I would say, if you'll allow me to get a little theoretical, and then I'm happy to get specific.
Yes.
For a long time, people had perceived two different poles of Republican foreign policy. There have been interventionists, and those have been people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham and George W. Bush. And there have been isolationists. And the most prominent of those have been Ron Paul and Rand Paul, and there are others. And people perceive those are the two choices. You got to be one or the other. I've always thought both were wrong. I don't agree with either one. the way I view my own foreign policy.
I'm with you, by the way, for whatever it's worth. I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't know who set up that binary, but there are lots of choices, actually.
I mean, people sort of naturally fall into, I think they want to classify people, and they're like, okay, you're one or the other, and you got to be all or nothing. And the interventionists, it seems, have never seen a country they didn't want to invade, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And the isolationists, I think, don't take the threats to America seriously, and I think that's naive, and it doesn't work.
Here they go. Here's the heel turn by all the Republicans. All the ones that are not going to stick to their guns and say, we're not going to war. The ones that are just going to be pro-war with Iran because they're Israeli shills with no cojones. Those guys are going to heel turn. They're going to be like, whoa, wait. I wasn't completely isolationist. Like, you already saw how Trump and J.D. Vance, they're already trying to spin America first means whatever Israel says. Israel going to war with Iran means that's America first. That's American priorities. No, it's not American priorities. Sending American tax money to go attack a country that it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Israel has nukes. Israel has a nuclear program that's unregulated, that nobody goes and oversees. Iran lets international people oversee and look into their nuclear program. I believe, like Hassan says, every country should have nukes or no country should have nukes. Because the only way for Iran to be sovereign is to have nukes. That's the only way Israel would not be bombing them the way they were or assassinating their people the way they have been. That's why they don't do it to the Chinese. That's why they don't do it to the Russians. That's why they don't do it to other countries that have nuclear bombs, like Pakistan and others, India. They don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb, not because they think Iran's going to use it, because the only country that's been crazy enough to use it has been the United States. They don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb because they want to be able to bully Iran. They want Israel to be the only nuclear country in the Middle East. That's what they want. And it's messed up. And that's why I don't support.
And so my view, I consider myself a third point on the triangle. And what I describe that as is that I am a non-interventionist hawk, which sounds a little weird, but what do I mean by that? I mean the central touch point for U.S. foreign policy and for any question of military intervention should be the vital national security interest of the United States. How does this make America safer? How does this protect Americans? If it does,
it doesn't.
We should be strong. And
it
actually,
makes
another
Americans
way of
more unsafe
conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically.
Because
but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump.
What don't these people get? It makes Americans unsafe. Just like we try to tell people, Israel doing a genocide against the Palestinians, Israel bombing all their neighbors does not make Jewish people more safe. It makes them more unsafe. Because for one, you're doing this in the name of Judaism. You keep conflating your Zionist tendencies with Judaism. So everybody's going to connect that to, oh, well, you're doing it in the name of Jewish people. So then that's why anti-Semitism goes up. Then they're going to keep doing this stuff. You keep bombing people and attacking people, you make them hate you. That does not make less people hate you. That will never make people wake up one day and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. If you hurt my family or somebody I love, I'm going to want revenge, especially if it seems very unprovoked. An innocent life taken. What else do you want people to do? Everyone else, why does Israel have a right to defend themselves, but no other country has a right to defend themselves? Nobody wants to answer that question. Somebody asked him.
Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness, and the
best way to avoid war is to go to war. That's how dumb. That's like the Israeli statement, oh, this was a preemptive strike to avoid going to war. We went to war to avoid going to war. Makes no sense.
Isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran,
So just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said. So we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is also America first. That's another way of putting that as well.
I think it's the definition of it.
Yeah.
It's hardly breaking news that the U.S. dollar has been gravely devalued by Washington money printing. You print money out of thin air, and the currency becomes weaker today.
The question is, are we watching that now?
So I think we are. And
We're not ethical reacting.
from what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And all right, let me contrast it when Obama was president. When Obama was president, you remember he talked about wanting to have military action against Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I tried to keep an open mind to it. I said, okay, let me listen to the commander-in-chief, describe to me how this is in America's interest and what your plan is. And Bashar Assad was a bad guy. He was killing his own citizens, and he had chemical weapons that were very dangerous. I could conceive of a commander-in-chief laying out a plan for, okay, we're going to go in and say, grab the chemical weapons and leave. Like, I could see that if there was a real threat to America and there was a plan to prevent that, I could see supporting that. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I listened both in classified briefings and public questioning. And number one, their public defense of it was incoherent. So John Kerry said, we're going to engage in an unbelievably small strike. I think that's a quote. I'm like, okay, and to do what? At the time, there were 9 major rebel Islamic groups in Syria. I'm like, okay, I agree, Bashar Assad's a bad guy. You topple him. And one of the 9 other groups takes over. 7 of them were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. You had Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra. I'm like, wait, how is it better to have lunatics who hate us in charge? Assad's a bad guy, but I don't want worse guys in charge. Obama administration couldn't give an answer to that. And ultimately, when you press them, John Kerry in particular, I pressed, and he would say, well, we need to defend international norms. Like, what the hell's an international norm? I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested in putting U.S. servicemen and women in harm's way to defend one.
Amen.
So I...
See, this is bullcrap because Republicans do the same thing. He's trying to spin this right now, but these guys do the same crap at the end of the day. They have their own international norms. Now, the only difference is they want to be more evil with stuff. They want to be more ruthless with how the U.S. operates foreign policy-wise. They don't want to do diplomatic stuff. They want to just go straight to the bombing, and they want to use force to force people into submission. That's what they want. That's the only difference between them. They want the same stuff as the Democrats. They just want to make it worse. They want more authoritarianism. Democrats want authoritarianism too, but they want to do it a little nicer.
I opposed the Syria attack and opposed it vocally. And it was interesting. Rand and I agreed. Rand's a friend of mine. But we agreed with that position for different reasons. What I was asking is I think the question we should ask, how does this make America safer? The Obama administration couldn't give me an answer, so I opposed it. I think Iran is very different.
Let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
Okay, what the heck? See, I don't understand this. Why does this go out?
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. Look, Syria's a mess, so I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious and ethnically diverse country, now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseeing the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem
well,
like
look,
a win.
one of the things you said is you said he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting. I had a long.
How did Assad get kicked out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Netanyahu was in D.C. a couple of months ago, he and I sat down for a couple of hours. He's a good friend of mine, and we talked actually.
Of course, this fool is a good friend of Netanyahu. That just means his pockets are deep.
About Syria, he made an interesting point that I've not heard anywhere else, in that he said he believes what toppled Assad was when Israel took out Nasrallah. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah, and they took him out. And he made an interesting point. He said it's fascinating how a charismatic leader, and Bibi said, look, Nasrallah was a very effective terrorist leader. And when they took him out, that power base was supporting Assad. And that ultimately, in Bibi's analysis, removed the support from Assad and toppled him. But they weren't trying to take out Assad. My view now, I don't know.
So you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey, our NATO ally Turkey, played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know that they did. Look, my understanding of that, they clearly took out Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They've decimated Hezbollah, but Hezbollah was waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America, too. I mean, Hezbollah hated us. I would put...
Do they ever ask themselves why these people hate us? These people don't just wake up, oh, I hate America. I don't like those Americans. I don't like what they have. No. They dislike us because our country has gone over there repeatedly and involved ourselves, whether it's in their politics, their voting, their regimes, been trying to run coups, whatever it is. We've constantly destabilized regions of this world beyond Asia, Europe, and North America. Everywhere else we've destabilized for the most part. And even parts of Asia. Like, we are the bad guys.
Put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned. Let me step back and let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also oppose the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the interventionist and the isolationist. The interventionists advocate over and over again, there's a bad guy, there's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people, and they say, let's go topple him.
This guy saying he's against Iraq, but wants to go to war with Iran. Iran is blueprint, same playbook they're playing from Iraq that they've been doing with Iran. Same playbook. Oh, they're this close. They've been saying they're this close to weapons for 50 freaking years. Like, what are we doing, people?
And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Like, Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same thing in Libya. You had Gaddafi, another horrible guy, that under Obama, we toppled him. And you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so, and it's the question I asked in Syria. Okay, well, what's the plan? And how is this good or bad for the United States?
Okay, there you go, Cruz. You just talked about how many times that we've toppled regimes and topple and topple and topple. And it's not worked, has it? So why keep doing it? Why?
And so I don't think with Iran, I view Iran as very different from Iraq.
But up to that point, you say we disagree. I don't hear really anything. I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know. So, right. But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So he thinks the Soviet Union, like, does he see Russia right now? Dirt poor, an oligarchy to the max, like worse than America. Like the billionaires just control everything. They got the insane, like that's what they want America to become.
Look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg Gate. And up top are the words, "Tear down this wall," in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my model for how to, I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
He didn't respond after the 83 barracks bombings.
You're right. Yeah, he made the judgment that the risk exceeded the benefits. And that's a very rational decision to make. And it's reflected. Trump has made those same decisions where he is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And one of the points about the Cold War, look, nobody in their right mind wanted a shooting war between America and the Soviet Union. The two biggest nuclear powers on Earth firing bullets at each other is really unhealthy for human beings. Same thing is true with China. Nobody with any sense says, hey, let's go to war with China. That's really dumb, and a whole lot of people could die. But the Cold War showed we've got lots of tools short of sending the Marines to fight against a regime. And one of the most important tools is the bully pulpit. And so when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply
that right there, the bully pulpit, is the exact reason they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Because the second a country gets nuclear weapons, he just admitted it, China, they cannot go to war with China. It's not because China just has a lot of people. It's because China has nuclear weapons. They have an army that is comparable to ours, weapons and technology. It'd be mutual destruction. Same thing with Iran. If Iran gets nuclear weapons, they cannot use the bully pulpit anymore. Iran is now a sovereign nation. They don't have to listen to America's wants and desires in beck and call. They don't have to be scared of America or Israel anymore. They can throw more power around in the region. Like, that's what America doesn't want. That doesn't mean they're coming out to get America. No. The issue is, and that's what people don't get, is America wants to just be the sole leader and the sole power and the sole benefactor of the world. And that's no longer the thing. And yet you have American politicians like Ted Cruz and half of the American government that's still trying to hold on to that power that America once had. We no longer have it. The world is no longer like that. It's going to be a multipolar world. We need to learn to live within it and coexist, or we're going to destroy ourselves. That's it.
Laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done that in a lot of different places, as you know. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying we're making a moral case, as we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that. And we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam or North Korea.
The main part of it, but it was tied to a military buildup. So I think it was two things. It was, one, the clarity. So Reagan came in and he described the Soviet Union as an evil empire.
Right.
And all of the intelligentsia in D.C., all the Democrats, all the media, they're like, what a horrible thing to say. You can't say that. Reagan went to the United Kingdom and he said, Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. People were horrified. They asked him, all right, what's your strategy in the Cold War? He said, very simple. We win, they lose. And that was all viewed as sort of a Philistine simplicity. And I think it was exactly right. And laying that out, speaking. Do you know the backstory behind the Berlin Wall speech?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
You probably know Peter Robinson, who was the speechwriter.
Yes.
So 3 times the State Department deleted those words from that speech. And 3 times Reagan wrote it back. And the State Department argued, they said, Mr. President, you can't say this. This is too bellicose. This is too provocative. And my favorite, they said, this is too unrealistic. The Berlin Wall will stand till the end of time. And Reagan said, look, this is the whole point of the speech. And less than 3 years after Reagan gave that speech, the Berlin Wall was torn to the ground. And it wasn't knocked down by American Army tanks. We didn't shoot missiles at it. It was shining truth and light that tore it down. It was also rebuilding the American military. It was what was then pejoratively called Star Wars, where the Soviet Union, their economy couldn't match our military buildup, and it bankrupted them. That's an example of peace through strength.
I wonder, I mean, is there anybody who was alive in 1989 who wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now? There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But, I mean, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy, it was, I wonder why after that victory, America didn't thrive in the way that we thought that it would, that I thought that it would. My family was involved in that. I mean, we were very focused on it in my house. Like, we won. And
of course you were.
I wonder two things. Why didn't the United States kind of declare victory and make some sort of arrangement with Russia that allowed like mutual prosperity rather than continuing a Cold War? And second, I wonder why the United States didn't get a lot better. Like, why don't we have better infrastructure? Why don't we have fewer homeless? Why do we have all these drugs? Like, if we won, why does our country look like this? I walked across from Union Station this morning, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And all these people lying in the street and sleeping outside. It's like, what is that?
We're sorry to say it, but this is not a very safe country. Walk through Oakland or Philadelphia. Yeah, good luck. So most people, when they think about this, want to carry a firearm, and a lot of us do. The problem is there can be massive consequences for that. Ask Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse got off in the end, but he was innocent from the first moment. It was obvious. You can't be arrested for defending yourself at yours today. Berna.com.
Look, there's no doubt there are really dangerous forces in our society. Some of it is politics and some of it is culture. And one of the mistakes people make in politics is thinking everything is politics. So the political answer, which I happen to believe, is we went much further down the road of liberalism. You look at Bill Clinton, who inherited the peace dividend of the Cold War being over and moved us more to the left, and then Obama accelerated it a lot. And so there are lots of bad economic policies, but I also think they're cultural things. You know, the loss of faith,
I agree with all of
family.
That. I know what you're going to say, and I agree 100%. I bet there's not one word that I would disagree with. All I'm saying is, like, I think it's important to step back and ask.
But I actually think Russia has very little to do with it. So,
well, that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, which is, like, we're all sort of focused on beating our adversaries abroad, but what is victory worth if our own country becomes what it is now? And maybe we're spending a little too much time focused abroad and not enough time focused on the people sleeping outside Union Station.
So, look, I absolutely think we need to focus at home emphatically, and we need to focus on prosperity. We need to focus on reducing the debt, reducing spending, empowering people, low taxes, small businesses. American free enterprise. It's the most powerful force for fighting poverty the world has ever seen. I'm 1,000% there. I also recognize it is a dangerous world. And part of the responsibility of leaders, part of President Trump's responsibility, is to keep America safe. Let's go back to where we started with
But can I ask,
Iran.
you've been in the district a long time in D.C., so have I. And the city's way more dangerous, and Congress runs this city.
No, it's a complete crap hole.
So I'm saying, like, no Iranian's ever going to kill me, but I could get carjacked here.
Well,
and I just don't understand how the Congress could run this city and focus on the dangers of Iran when the city is like garbage. It's garbage.
But Congress doesn't run the city. We could.
Congress does run the city. It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but they've given home rule, so it's a Democrat mayor who runs it.
You control the Congress.
I'd vote for it, but it is a question of math.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, how can people ignore? It's like, if my own kids are drug addicts, but I'm focused on my neighbor's kids, it's like I'm neglecting my own kids. And there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems.
See, this is where Tucker Carlson fools people, because he does come off as this very progressive, class-conscious, worker, like, left-wing ideology, like populist ideology, like talking about this stuff. But at the end of the day, he doesn't actually care about that. He'll use that in this instance, but he doesn't actually ever want to take on like corporations or anything to actually help make people's lives better.
That's the way it feels as an American.
Look, there are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? Because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, whether it's L.A., whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats, we see the L.A. riots where they won't let people be arrested.
Oh my God, here we go. People do get arrested. People have been arrested in L.A. You're allowed to protest. You're allowed to march. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to have a permit to march down the street to protest. When they send the police after you, they're stomping out your constitutional right. They don't send the police and tear gas right-wingers. Protests, 90% of the time, don't get violent until the police show up and start shooting or tear gassing protesters. At that point, all bets are off. You can't get mad at protesters when they start getting violent back. They didn't do anything wrong. They're exercising their right. That's what people don't get. Is you let these freaking politicians twist shit and twist your rights to how it benefits them. No. Protests are not meant to get permits and on the side of the road and not make noise. They're meant to be a hassle. They're meant to be a nuisance. That's the whole point of a protest. How these people don't get that still is mind-boggling. Do they think the Boston Tea Party was just, like, the whole point was it was a nuisance? Like, it cost the British Empire money. Like, what are we doing here, people?
All right.
Then why not work in regime change here? Why not use the bully pulpit?
I do. What do you think I do every day?
I never see a Republican senator stand up and say, I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week. The riots in L.A., I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement from arresting criminals, you get what you get on the street.
Amen, I agree.
I wish Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom were as cool as these people make them out to be. Democrats are never as cool as they make them out to be.
Those are Californians, and they're wonderful people. That Heidi grew up on the Central Coast of California, and I remember I was texting with my mother-in-law, and I think I sent her a video of criminals going to a store and just looting in California. And her response, she said something like, well, this is really terrible. I wish we could, it's a shame we can't do anything about this. I said, yes, you can. Go in and arrest them. Throw their butts in jail, put them in handcuffs, 100%. And it stops.
Exactly.
And so we know how to fix these things. And D.C. is, I think D.C. voted, if I remember right, 92% Democrat. Democrat policies don't work, and they destroy every community that they are in charge of.
Then why don't Republicans assert their constitutional authority over the city? Don't they control the Congress?
Yes, I'd be all for it.
Who's against it?
Susan Collins is really vocally against it. So on questions of home rule, so for example, let's take an issue you and I care a lot about, the COVID lockdowns. I had a couple of years ago in the middle of them. D.C. was proposing, the D.C. school district was proposing throwing out of school any child that was not vaccinated. And at the time, if I remember correctly, it was something like 40% of the African-American students in D.C. were not vaccinated. So they were talking about literally throwing out 40% of the kids at public school. And so I had a vote on the Senate floor to say, look, they can't throw kids out of school for this. And we ended up having a big argument, and part of the argument was home rule, where there was, and Susan was the most vocal Republican that's like, no, we have to let D.C. run. And I'm like, why? Constitution gives us the power to do it. And it ended up, by the way, every single Democrat, all of them, voted in favor of the D.C. public schools being able to throw out 40% of the black kids from school. And I said, look, you throw a kid out of school, you got a 14, 15-year-old boy, you throw him out of school, you know what's going to happen next. He's going to join a gang. He's going to engage in crimes. He's going to engage in drugs. He could be dead within 5 years if that kid doesn't get an education. And the Democrats were more than happy to say, we don't care. Right now, our religion is get the vaccine or to hell with you.
But can you see, I mean, once again, I couldn't agree with you more, but can you feel the frustration of people, including your voters, every American, at the emphasis on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face, a lot of which is fake, obviously, over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country? The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel, very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me, you vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy.
You see how he instantly pushed back on Israel? He had no problem with him saying stuff about Ukraine. That's how you know these people do not care and they're not serious. Because they pick and choose. And he's right. The thing is, Democrats want to support Ukraine and Israel because they both support them. Most Democrats. There's still a lot of us that don't want to support Israel as much. And there's still a lot of people that don't want to support either, that just want to be at home. But Republicans, most of them want to support Israel no matter what. They have no problem. They never bring up the money we send to Israel. They always want to bring up the money we send to Ukraine or whatever, which I agree with. That's the difference between them and me. I say, cut them both off.
Policy, American interest. Our support, our military support for Israel is massively in America's national security interest.
What is it?
And the thing is, you don't even got to cut people off, but flex your power. What's the point of influencing these countries like this when Israel's committed? That's why it's so frustrating with the genocide. Is the U.S. just doesn't care, because if the U.S. cared, they would force them to stop, and they can't force them to stop. You cut out their military budget that you've been giving them, and the bombs. Guess what? They're going to get bombed more. Now they got to choose: do they want to commit a genocide, or do they want to survive a potential war? And that's what you do. That's the whole point of this. What's the point of doing all this if you don't ever flex that?
And it benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know. And there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces. And so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect over.
That's why they hate us, because we support Israel and let Israel do whatever they want in the region. You were if we did not support Israel like this, we just had a normal relationship with all the countries in the region. Guess what? I bet you most of them wouldn't hate us. We just want to bully people.
Overlap. And so if we tried to recreate, if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel, it would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot.
Really?
We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and you...
It's funny. It's okay if our allies spy on us, but not if other foreign governments that we consider not our allies. So if it was China or Iran or somebody, then all of a sudden it's an issue. But hey, that's what I mean. They just pick and choose issues to have. There's no rhyme or reason. They pick and choose an enemy because it's all these rich people picking and choosing. Hey, this country doesn't allow me to go do whatever I want with my company or my business in that country, so you force your way. That's all America is anymore.
Utopian? You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us, and I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question. I'm not asking whether they have motive to do it. Of course they do. I understand that, and
by the way,
I'm not mad at them. But you're an American lawmaker, so I just want to know. Hold on, I want to know your attitude. Yeah. You said that your guiding principle, in fact, the only principle, the only criterion.
I said guiding, the overwhelming. I wouldn't say only.
Is it in America's interest? Is it in America's interest for Israel to spy on us, including on the president?
It is in America's interest to be closely allied with Israel because we get huge benefits for it. And you want to see the clearest...
But I just want to stop on the spying for a second. That it takes place, as you know, and including on the President of the United States and several precedents. And I just want to know if that's okay and why is it okay? Wouldn't an American lawmaker say to a client state, you're not allowed to spy on us? I'm sorry. I know why you want to. I'm not mad at you, but you're not allowed to.
Sure.
And I don't care for it. I don't want to be spied on by you. Is that... It's kind of weird not to say that, but you don't seem able to say that.
Sure, I would say don't spy on us. They're going to anyway. And by the way...
Because he's cucked by Israel, and he knows that. He's owned by Israel. He can't do anything. He has to let them spy. That's why he can't badmouth Israel.
The Brits are, the Canadians are. Like, I don't think...
Well, I'm not for that at all. Okay. I think it's disgusting. But we don't actually pay their... You know, we're not their most meaningful sponsor. We're not sort of paying for the operations of the British government.
So I got to say, and this is... It's weird... We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Oh, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think a lot of people are. And like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess... No. I'm hardly the one who's... I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli... friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress.
Not a lot effectively, and it's funny because every single politician that gets money from AIPAC is unconditionally supported Israel through their genocide, through every unprovoked attack of a neighbor. Like, this spineless piece of crap. It does matter. You know why everybody's worried about Israel? Because Israel's committing a genocide with our tax money. Israel's attacking their neighbors and then trying to drag us into a war with a major country for who knows how long that could evolve into a major world war. All because they want to be bullies and they want to bully the region. And they think that they could do whatever because they got Big Brother America that will come running to them anytime that they ask. Because they got shit on you. They got stuff on every politician, apparently. And AIPAC pays you guys. That's why it matters. I'm so tired of these guys acting stupid.
13 years ago,
yes,
with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more.
I love how he's downplaying AIPAC too. Oh, I don't do much. We don't pass much. That's funny because every time something with Israel happens, the guys that, the dogs, you dogs that are AIPAC dogs, run to the Twitter and come out with your statements supporting Israel unconditionally every time. That's why AIPAC matters. People aren't dumb.
More effective. Like, there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No,
this.
Not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
America has thousands of colleges and universities.
All right, we're going to stop there for the day because I got to get going, but... wrong. Just wrong. No other, nothing else, just wrong. Screw this guy. All right, thanks for watching, chat. We'll finish this tomorrow.